So, when talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Captain America the Winter Soldier was a very different movie from what came before. It kind of solidified Steve Rogers as a character. It kind of introduced the Russo's thesis statement that his morality is his weapon, which might sound a little silly, but I guess it makes sense contextualized with the Captain America films. And it's also significant for totally leveling S.H.I.E.L.D., which at this point was kind of the constant of the MCU and kind of the something that was considered to be safe. So when you go on something like Reddit, like on our movies, Kevin Feige's pitch of The Winter Soldier being a political thriller is, kind of mocked in a way, because, it's just a superhero movie. And they're not exactly wrong, but it's hard to deny that this film at least touches upon political topics like surveillance, civil liberties, while also still taking inspiration from those 70s political thriller movies, like specifically ones with Robert Redford in it. But as we're recording this, Black Panther came out months ago, and it's definitely showing us how far the MCU can get into being timely and talking about important political, societal issues. So I'm wondering, does the Winter Soldier still hold up? Does it ultimately have something worthwhile to say, even still? Because I think it has some strengths, but maybe some shortcomings. So you're listening to AP Marvel. This is the first episode in our what will attempt to be a more intellectual conversation about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not to say that every other one of the other several podcasts about Marvel suck or anything like that, or are quote-unquote stupid, but we just think that we're kind of filling in a gap. Like, we're talking about the larger issues that focus around these movies. So I'm Chris Compendio. You've probably seen my work on Marvel News Desk, MCU Exchange, Pace Magazine, Destructoid, etc. I'm here with Izzy. Hello.
Hi. Hi, Chris. How are you
There
doing?
we go. Good start. And Izzy, you are a newly minted contributor for Marvel News Desk. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And here is Anthony.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah. If you've listened to any of my Bad Haircast podcasts, you may remember Anthony's very loud voice.
Yes. My voice can be quite loud.
Oh, yes. Perfect for broadcasting online.
Yes.
So I've gathered this team of experts here.
Yeah,
we're gathered around in Anthony's apartment, kind of reeling from Infinity War. We just saw the night before we were recording this right now. Obviously, we're not going to talk about this episode because that is a...
I am an emotional wreck.
Yes, well, there's that, but that is a...
that is the limit of what we will discuss.
Yeah, that is for another day.
That's all.
So let's wind back to the Russo's first film in the MCU canon. Captain America the Winter Soldier, which came out in 2014. It's co-written by Marcus and McFeely, who also wrote The First Avenger. So I think probably the most important scene, just kind of the the base of the movie, is that conversation between Nick Fury and Steve Rogers with the helicarriers. So that's where they introduce Project Insight, which is basically this surveillance project that will basically catch terrorists and criminals before they're able to take action. And Steve Rogers is basically saying, no, this is wrong. I thought the punishment came after the crime. So, I don't know. Let's begin by talking about that scene a little bit. If you can think of any quotes and any, specifically any parallels to real-life events, specifically in the United States, if anyone wants to get into that.
So, the first quote I think about, which you sort of mentioned already, was, this isn't freedom, this isn't fear. And it's, been all over, I remember it being all over the trailers and stuff. And it's pretty, pointed. I remember looking back on it, it seemed very, pretty baseline, pretty simple. But I think one of the great beauties of the film is that, when you look forward, when you watch the movie years later and, you're more knowledgeable and you look back at it, in the context of everything that's going on, it's really important, and it is the sign of a big debate going around, and really started really started something like within the movie as well, and like, started laying down the seeds for like further like political dissent.
Well, it lays it down, but do you feel like it kind of follows through with that?
I think that, I guess it follows through. Like, I think it follows through in the sense, like, from Steve's perspective, like, obviously you can't get, like, Nick satisfied, like, since he, dies, like, midway through the movie.
Dies, quote unquote, dies.
Dies. But, sorry. But, I think it, has some good, I think it starts off, like, having some good points. I think it's really hard
Well, who specifically had good points?
If you think about, like, almost, like, both sides, because, like, if you look at it, I almost, like, looking at it from the future, as I said, like,
okay.
Look, Nick had, like, Fury had some good points to say, like, like, we're protecting ourselves, like, against the world, like, they're doing that in Civil War, again, I know this is the movie, like, with the Accords, like, this is it's almost like the Accords before the Accords even happened, like, they're trying to watch over, like, future threats.
Yeah, it's a government, or, like, a branch of the government, or an agency kind of stepping in.
Remember, Nick Fury wanted to do this. This was
I think we kind of forget that sometimes.
People forget that Nick Fury was A-okay with this, and and that's why I really like the quote about the gun, where it's where he's talking about his grandfather or father. Who worked at,
when he's in the elevator.
He worked in an elevator. He worked in an elevator, and every day he would go to work, and then the neighborhood that he would walk through got much more dangerous for him, and then because he would always carry around money in his bag. And someone asked him, "Hey, what's in the bag?" And he would look in, and it was a .32 Magnum. And this is the Magnum. This is the gun. This is a protective.
It's a preemptive.
Preemptive.
I mean, more preemptive would be like if you would like shoot someone before they did something.
Exactly.
But the fact that he has it, as like a deterrent, I guess let's call it.
So I think it. I mean, like I think it brings up a lot of still prevalent points today. And my quote was the gun quote. But I think it still brings up points today of like rules and systems that we have in place of preemptive or just general rules that we have. Are they like what happens if someone who is immoral or unethical has those same powers or same quality, the same stature?
Yeah.
I'm
gonna bring that up again later.
So I'm gonna be talking about a little bit about this right now. Then, I always think about the executive branch of the government. A lot of people have never really talked about how
the
much
U.S.
power,
government specifically.
The U.S. government specifically. No one really talked about how much power the executive branch really had until we got Trump, and then we saw truly how much power the president does have and how much damage could be done to a democracy just by one individual.
I mean, you can probably bring that back to like Bush Cheney, honestly.
Of course, but I think combined with a bunch of other things, more people have become aware of it on a especially our generation has become more aware because we were like 7 and 8. A lot of us were 7.
I was sitting next to my friend Anna Etzel. We were watching it at the Waterfront Theater.
Which movie?
Winter Soldier.
Okay. Yeah.
And the last act when Black Widow is typing stuff and like releasing stuff, I literally whispered to her, "She's doing an Edward Snowden thing."
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that happened during Obama's tenure. Yeah, and so that kind of. I'd like to think it woke up some people about stuff else going on.
I mean, I think that there are. I mean, a lot of people put blame directly Obama. I mean, I don't want to go into too much politics about it, but I think it.
Oh, please do. That's the point of this.
I think it's a systemic thing.
Yeah.
I think no matter who was in power,
sure,
that was going to be a problem, and that has been a problem in this system. And that is something that countless movies have talked about, and I think that's important.
Can you cite any?
I mean, Spotlight specifically.
Yeah.
Talked about I forget the actor who plays Sabretooth. I don't know why.
Liev Schreiber.
Yeah. Liev Schreiber.
Ray
He specifically
Donovan.
says targeting a few priests is great, but people are going to forget about it in a few weeks. We have to tear down the system. And it's about bringing down the system as a whole and showing the problems
That
of
sounds familiar.
And that sounds familiar with what Kat was talking about. It's just like, we can't let S.H.I.E.L.D. survive. All of it is compromised.
Oh, boy.
Tear the whole thing down.
Tear the whole thing down.
Uh-huh.
Crash
the price of freedom is high. And that's the price I'm willing to pay.
Yeah, and
Anthony quotes this a lot.
for context,
I quote this all the time.
I've only been in Pittsburgh for about 24 hours, and Anthony has said that like at least
20 times,
like roughly like once an hour.
I was the costume. And I put this costume in quotes for Infinity War that I had was undercover Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
So I had the sunglasses, the hat, and the leather jacket.
Undercover MCU character.
And I would say
Will
to
Simpson.
a phone, I was saying to a phone, the price of freedom is high. But it's the price of
Even though that's not the scene where he said that.
I know it's not the scene, but it's something.
Speaking of Steve Rogers quotes, by holding a gun to everyone's head and calling it protection.
That's not protection. It's fear.
Well, here's the thing. So
that's the right line.
So for some context, like I teach this Marvel class. And since then, I pass it on to Anthony, pass it on to Thomas Rasmussen, who passed on to Izzy, who's going to keep going and going until we're all dead. Anyway,
the inevitable heat death of the universe.
So, in my initial presentation for this class, I was like, oh, so what political party do you think Steve Rogers is in? And everyone's like, oh, the Libertarian Party, because they love freedom and stuff like that. So I did a little, and I did a lot of digging around on the internet, and I found a lot of like libertarian Facebook groups who had like graphics of this heroic Captain America image with the quote in giant text. Like, so I wrote down here in the notes. Some of these quotes were like libertarian wet dreams. So I've never really talked about this openly because I'm kind of embarrassed by it after the 2016 election. But 2012, I did have like a brief, the libertarian thing sounds okay.
No,
Gary Johnson for president.
No, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of college students.
A lot of people
our age.
Because it's the socially liberal, fiscally conservative.
Yeah, and then like once you start to learn more, you start to figure out, wait, those things can't really
be. I mean, so like the argument that we're like, I mean, like this is getting really political, but like a lot of fiscally conservative ideas are also incredibly racist.
Absolutely, oh yeah,
and like homophobic and queerphobic, and there's a lot of problems that come with that. But moving on to like the generic ideology of libertarianism.
Yeah, when you have the elevator pitch on
the elevator pitch of
news.
Libertarianism can lead to like the belief is that human beings are inherently good, or that human actions will lead to inherent goodness, and that humans can function on their own without any sort of leadership or like. There are certain things that human beings just can't deal with, and others need to do it. Does that make sense? And that's the point of a government.
Did you watch this Samantha Bee, this remote sketch where they basically they took a camera crew to the Libertarian Convention in 2016?
Oh, fun! The LNC.
Yes, exactly. As we all know,
I don't even know if that's a real name.
Yeah, but it was just absurd. Like everyone just had totally irrational opinions and like were very showy and like tearing a dollar bill like in the stage debate and booing whenever like Gary Johnson was like, I think that people should have a license to drive, and I would have voted for the Civil Rights Act, and just crazy things like that.
People boo the Civil Rights Act because it's the government controlling people.
What's next? Having to need a license to toast bread in your own goddamn home? Slams the podium.
So because we're talking about libertarianism so much, it's important to talk about how like libertarians are like, it's like the way of the majority. The way of the majority doesn't always work because the minority doesn't have a voice. And the minority needs to have a voice. Otherwise, they are fucked.
They're not represented.
They're not represented. And most of the marginalized in our society are minorities. So...
and none of that really comes into play in this movie, but I'm just...
Oh, I know.
But
it's connected to libertarianism.
Yeah, but I feel... I have a different mindset than I did when I first made
Yeah.
that PowerPoint years ago. So I'm wondering, like, do you think Steve Rogers would subscribe to a certain political ideology, or is that like, do you think that's like not relevant to kind of the story,
I
or?
think after Civil War, sorry,
I mean, like,
after Civil War, probably not anymore. But like looking in the context of the Winter Soldier, I think he's just coming out of the ice. Like he's still trying to adjust to what's going on. So it's really like whatever ideals and standards like he had back then, and sort of just trying to adjust now. Because like during the 40s, like there's still very much a two-party system, and when he comes back to the president, like it's still 2014, but that two-party system is sort of starting to die out. Like yes, as you said, people are sort of looking more towards libertarianism, even though it's like a slow rise. Like people are like libertarianism was a big factor in the 2016 election. Like it's becoming a bigger
more
change.
focused. People more. It wasn't a factor in like voting wise, but it's a factor in like what people talked about.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think that's something that's important. But when it comes down to Cap, I don't. It's interesting because people talk about this all the time. Like, is he a libertarian? Is he Democrat? Is he Republican? Is he freaking Green Party? It's.
He's America.
Well like
He's part of the American political party.
There
is no party, only the American
There are
party.
libertarian ideals that are inherently flawed. There are Republican ideas that are inherently flawed. There are Democrat ideals that are inherently flawed. Every side has inherent flawness, but saying that everyone's bad is
Many sides
is also ridiculous because there's obviously there's other moral, ethical goodness to it. But I don't think that Cap cares. Cap wouldn't vote. That's what I think.
You think so?
I think Cap wouldn't vote.
I think Cap would go the George Washington route of like don't split it into don't go like a two-party system because you're gonna end up dividing.
But he would still vote for someone, and like maybe he would like
don't
cover his eyes and like not see which party they're in. But like
I think he would vote regardless of the party. Like he wouldn't like pre-register and like vote like their primaries.
Sure, yeah.
But, like he'd vote like when it came down to like, the big general like huge election, like he wouldn't care.
I mean, he'll vote for state reps and stuff and all that. So like the libertarian thing is also not voting for reps because reps are more government money and stuff.
So you mentioned like maybe his ideology like in the 1940s. So there's this Nick Fury line when he's kind of retorting. He's like, referring to the greatest generation. You guys did some nasty stuff.
Did he say we were compromised? Or he said something else. He said something else that was like very Cap.
I'm sorry, whenever you say compromise, I can only think of like the scene when he's driving the car. His window's compromised.
Yeah, window integrity compromised. No, he said something along the lines of, but we did it so people can be free. And then he says, this isn't freedom, this is fear. So I don't know.
But
I mean,
I don't agree with that statement either.
With Cap's statement?
With Cap's statement.
Okay.
Because murdering millions of people with atomic bombs is not freedom.
It's sacrifice. No, it's not even sacrifice.
It's murder.
Yeah, you know what? I feel stupid for saying this. What you just said, that never registered to me in like the 4 years I've been rewatching this movie.
Oh, the fact that basically Cap was just like okay with like atomic bombs.
I saw this
also Japanese internment camps.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I saw this video sketch on the Marvel Studios subreddit. I think it was literally like a day or two ago, and it was like Cap busting into this this facility, and he was like yelling at this villain because he had the button, like if I press this, like these nukes are gonna go off, and Cap's like, how dare you, like you can't be the first person ever to launch a nuclear weapon at a civilian population. And then everyone's just kind of looking at each other like, wait, you don't know? You don't know?
Yeah. Part of me thinks that maybe he didn't know about the nuke thing.
He's been doing his reading.
I mean, he has been, but not on the list. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not on that list. Do you know what was on that list before that? Star Wars.
Well, no, I
know.
Yeah, I think the first thing he wanted to know is what happened at the end of the war.
Who won the war?
Yeah. I liked that one shot where he's sneaking into his apartment through the window, and you see like
all the books.
you see the bookshelf, and you see he's like reading about all the presidents and all the wars and stuff like that. I thought that was a really good piece of production design.
I would have liked to have actually heard his perspective on, like, see Cap's perspective on it, like on either in a comic or in something, to see there might be, and I don't even know it, a perspective of like, what's his opinion on the bombs being dropped, because the bombs being dropped was a president decision, was a presidential decision, was not a military general decision.
Harry Truman,
was a presidential
Harry Truman
decision.
Fresh from becoming president.
Japanese internment was not a general decision. It was a presidential decision.
Right. So I guess where I'm trying to go with that is, I've always seen this movie about conflicting ideologies from different time periods.
Yes.
And I feel, and like, this is my way of simplifying it, but it feels like the argument that this movie is trying to make is that the old school way, like Cap's way of doing it, was the right way to do it.
But here's the thing.
Well, I mean, I want you guys to do two things. Do you think that's right? And also, can you like expand on that and like explain what these different ideologies are?
I think that's what the movie does, but I think the movie also shows why both are wrong because of context. Does that make sense?
Define context.
Yeah, make it more sense.
The context is that the past was like good versus bad. Everyone was just like, Hitler's bad and Nazis are terrible.
Oh, okay.
But then ignoring like the countless the 20 years after World War II of the Nuremberg trials and all of the trials that happened in Israel of like figuring out that the Nazi generals and all of the people and all the Nazis that were imprisoned were not inherently bad people. They are people that are flawed, who were taught flawed things, and it's just essentially a banality of evil.
They're just following orders.
Well, following orders combined with like other flawed, ignorant
Operation
things.
Paperclip was a real thing.
I don't know. I forget what that was.
I like hiring like former Nazi scientists and stuff.
Yeah. Which is with what Armin Zola thing.
Yeah, they name dropped that. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's a real thing.
Yeah. It's just that with context, you need to understand. Like the way that I was always taught growing up was that like in the past there was good and bad. There was the good guys and there was the bad guys, and that's how Cap lived. And once this happened, he learned that there can be good people and there can be bad people, but there's also a massive gray area.
I don't think he's even learned that yet. At the point of the Winter Soldier,
right?
I don't think he didn't learn that yet because
that took time.
Yeah, because his
Civil War and
great up his morality and like his separate. Well, the base word is stubbornness. Like there's probably like a nicer word that he call it, but he won't learn about that gray area. He's probably only learning about that gray area now, like Infinity War, like almost.
I mean,
I feel like Natasha was kind of like his tutor in Gray Area 101, let's call it.
There was something that I was thinking about. I know this is a little bit off of Winter Soldier, but it's specifically what Cap says from the future of it, where he says, when it's in Age of Ultron, it's like anytime someone tries to stop a war before it starts, people die. Right?
Yes.
And I think that's because he learned from the Winter Soldier of the preemptiveness of like trying to stop it, but also I think it's also historical. He also looked at historical things that the U.S. has done, where we have had like CIA operations and secret government ops trying to go in and stop all Cold War things that he missed out on, where we've gone in and we've lost. Because we try to stop something from happening.
So I mean, since you mentioned like the CIA and the shady stuff that they have done through our
it also
history.
happened in the Middle East too. Yeah, like with Iran. Yeah, specifically where they. But that was also
and kind of tying that in with the tying that in with the Greatest Generation versus Modern Generation, I guess. Let's call like those conflicting ideologies. And it seems like one of the main points of Steve's argument was, you're like compartmentalizing everything. You're like keeping everything secret. This being an intelligence agency. So kind of asking that question, like, was he right again? Like, was this movie trying to show that, like, oh, like, transparency is important? Like, we released all this shit on the internet.
What if the FBI and the CIA existed before World War II? Throughout all of World War II. Do you think we would have known about the concentration camps beforehand? Do you think
we the public?
We the public? We didn't know. We know stuff was happening. We know that people were dying.
Right.
We didn't know where they were dying. You know stuff was happening.
So what would that have changed if we all knew?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do you think that Cap's perspective would have changed with that spy, with like a spy aspect? I'm just
that's a good question.
I think.
Yeah, but I mean, like, answering the question with a question. I don't know. I mean, there are reasons why we classify things. There are reasons why the general public is like completely out of the know. That Jared Kushner is out of the know now. Yes. So I've always been confused at exactly what SHIELD does for the government, because
it's like it feels like an underground.
It's third party.
It's just like the fucking X-Files or something.
It's like they're like not missionaries.
Missionaries.
Not missionaries. Definitely, that's not. They're not going out trying to spread the word of.
Yeah, they're ringing their doorbells. They're all ringing.
Have you heard about the Avengers?
Yeah. The Church of Latter Day.
Church of Latter Day Stark.
Yeah.
What was it? They are mercenaries, kind of. I think, or like third-party spy agencies, which do exist. We have those.
I'm not very knowledgeable about them. But I mean,
they're not a government agency.
That's interesting because
they get government funded.
Huh. Okay. Because
they're government funded.
Right. Okay. I feel like none of that was really clear.
I mean,
so like, yeah. Well, I mean, here's my thing that I was going to cite. But like at the end when Natasha's at the congressional panel, I think what like this congressman is like, you basically destroyed our defense infrastructure by taking down SHIELD. I don't remember if that's the exact quote, but that's the gist of what I remember. That SHIELD was like an important body for the government, an important organ, a vital organ, let's call it. So I've always wondered, because the sense I get from like say like the TV show or like
military. Well, because in this universe there's superheroes and mystical and paranormal things, and that's what SHIELD does. Yeah, so
is this like Torchwood? Is this the X-Files? Are they just like this is really weird. Let's just hand this over to SHIELD because we're the CIA.
So the way that so there's the Global Security Council. That's basically the heads. They're like the board members of SHIELD. And the way that the way that Wiki describes it is that they're a quasi-military group initially depicted as affiliated with the U.S. government. Hence why they're in D.C. But also, they were later just depicted as under the jurisdiction of the UN.
Huh. Okay. Interesting.
So once the Avengers had that base in on the Hudson River, which we saw in the picture, which we now know that it's on the Hudson River specifically.
Yeah, I appreciated that shot of the
movie
we're not talking about today.
The movie we're not talking about today, but I really like that now I know exactly where it is because I live right on the Hudson River.
Hey,
so like literally it could be across the street from my hometown.
you can visit them,
which is awesome. So like think Nyack or think like from Nyack all the way down to Teaneck, if anyone can look that up. That's that on that side of the Hudson River. That's where they'll be.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, they worked under the UN, and then once SHIELD was gone, and there was that Avengers base with SHIELD, like ex-SHIELD people, and like just people like new Avengers, unquote people that
and
they
scientists
hired.
and like
Scientists.
random cadets who were like jogging,
Yeah,
and we
whereas
never saw them
in Age of
again.
Ultron, they're under the jurisdiction of the UN.
Okay.
So they took the place of Shield.
And where did Sharon Carter end up? Did she end up with the CIA at the end? I don't remember.
She ended up CIA.
Yeah,
CIA.
yeah.
Because that's what Everett Ross. But like back to
Okay.
Marshall.
What was that? Anyway.
That was the chair.
Okay. That was me. So what the hell? I don't even know what I was going with this. With
Greatest Generation.
Yeah, Greatest Generation, and just like the role of intelligence agencies.
Just changed over time.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like this this film had any sort of critique of how these intelligence agencies have acted? I mean, like, there's the whole, like, the whole exposition sequence of Zola being like, we changed the course of history, and, like, he flashes all these images, and literally there's, like, less than a second, there is a tiny, tiny video clip of Julian Assange that I noticed.
Really?
I rewatched it 2 nights ago, and I was like, wait,
Julian
what the
Assange is Hydra. Julian Assange is Hydra confirmed.
Wait, what?
We confirmed it here. Julian Assange is Hydra. Take him down. No, but I think the idea is that like CIA has done a lot of shitty things around the world, and that's what it was targeting.
So here is kind of the big thing that I want to talk about, because I feel that when people critique this movie about its political issues, they seem to think that, the movie introduces all of these interesting political elements, all of these... It's like dropping down things about surveillance and intelligence agencies, and then at the end it kind of goes, oh, but it was just all Nazis. So, in a way, did that kind of make it into just black and white? Like, oh, they're Nazis, so therefore boom, they're bad. Like,
Nazis in S.H.I.E.L.D., it's like a corrupted good thing. So I think it kind of puts like the sort of like the MCU like at like a moral fall, because it introduces that concept like, oh, if some things aren't like always like, it was like sort of like Steven said, like some things aren't inherently good, some things aren't like inherently bad. Like it was very clear like Hydra is bad, like S.H.I.E.L.D. is good, and now you have them as one and the same. Sorry, and now you have them as one and the same. So
I think that's what they were doing. That's what they were thinking, but that's not how we as society kind of think of it.
Because you can't apply that to
so
real
this
life.
actually brings up a video I was watching by Lindsay Ellis.
It's the deep state.
About Lindsay Ellis did a video about satire and brought up the producers, because a lot of people talk about satire and like he made fun of Nazis and stuff.
Is this the artist formerly known as the Nostalgia Chick, I think?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was talking about how Mel Brooks specifically targeted Hitler and how to make him make fun of him in a way that a way that works. I can go into more detail about it in another time on another thread in another universe, or just watch the video. It's a great video. But ever since World War II, we've always seen Hitler and the Nazis as inherently bad because we see them, because they are bad people. And I think using Hydra in S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of takes away from the grayness of the movie. Because when we go and see it, we see good versus bad. Mm-hmm.
It's like a weird...
Robert Redford...
They try to set up as gray, but it's like a weird, like... Sorry, I cut you off. It's like a weird, like, murky... Because, like, you are right. Like, by putting it, like, by realigning it into a good and bad context.
It removes a lot of the context. It removes a lot of, like, the point of the film.
Exactly.
Is it like, letting the real-life CIA, like, off the hook a little bit, or...?
I think...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Mm-hmm. Because it says that the CIA was doing something good.
Because the CIA did like some shitty stuff, but if you like, it's like in a distribution wise, it's almost like, let's say like 60-70% good, and then like 30% bad in that case. Like that's, I think the composition.
Like, if in real life, we had Nazis inside of the CIA who did all of these things, and that's why they were bad. Maybe then it makes sense because we know that Nazis are like not inherently bad, but we know that the group themselves are bad because they believe in eugenics and want people to be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was like a 50-50 split with like just Hydra in Shield. Like it just made the film like a 50-50 split instead of like a 60-40 or 70-30, and that made it less compelling. Like it was still a good twist at the time, but it also made it like when we looking at it now, like less compelling.
When you contextualize it in kind of the real life political landscape that we're in, and like, kind of our own history.
Like in real life, like Snowden, like and Assange, like those weren't 50-50 conflicts. Those were heavily weighed towards one side, and like in terms of like the good and bad scale. If that makes any sense.
Well, depends. People still think those are still gray areas.
Exactly. Like
those are still gray areas.
Is he a traitor or a patriot?
Yeah.
Fox News tonight.
And you can be both.
Is that a cop out answer?
I don't know. Only sit still in absolutes. You know.
So like, do you view this as like a fallacy of the film then?
Watch Winter Soldier and then The Last Jedi back to back.
Well, what? Okay, that. Why?
Because they both talk about gray areas.
Right.
I think at the time, it's not. I mean, I think it's still a solid movie. It's not a fallacy.
Oh, absolutely.
It's more like a critique. Like, you could have done this better.
Sure.
But the points you propose and position
Also, it's a movie.
Are interesting.
It's a movie that wants to talk about Hydra. Like there are certain things that need to be discussed in it, and it uses political thriller and NSA as a backdrop for it because it's politically relevant and nice and wonderful to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, like, I probably would not call The Winter Soldier a straight-up political thriller film, but it certainly, like...
has elements of political
it references them. It basically takes... elements of them to enhance this, what would have just been another
There are more,
movie.
like, non-superhero-based political thrillers with Nazis. Mm-hmm. During Cold War.
Yeah.
During the Cold War, there's like during the 70s and 80s, I believe there's I can't remember the specific one there, but there are political thrillers where the bad guys are Nazis or worked with Nazis.
And let's just think about like even movies today that or like in the past 10 or 20 years that kind of get deep into this stuff. I mean, I guess like the Jason Bourne movies perhaps. I'm not too
the first three
invested in
Jason Bournes. I think that they were more separated than the more recent ones. I think the more recent one tried to actually copy this.
Huh? How so?
Yeah.
They try to be more on surveillance.
They got Jeremy Renner in a Marvel movie.
Yeah. Zooming through the Philippines.
But then there was another one after that, right? I think.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one.
So The Dark Knight kind of had that bit where, well, first of all, like the entire movie was like,
we talked about this in our class as well.
Yeah, we don't negotiate with terrorists, like that whole thing. And then the whole surveillance magical screen of death at the end.
Yeah.
Where there's like a very brief ethical debate about this.
We know we trust the actions in these movies because we know that the characters are good. If we were given the same context and had no backdrop on what the character is,
if it was like a completely original movie.
Well, I mean, like not even that. If we had no idea who these characters were, and we just like we heard about this one dude who did all of this actually kept all of this information from us, and hacked into people's phones, would you be upset about that? Would you be upset about someone who had all of your access information, like where your cell phone was, and then used ringings from your cell phone to hunt down someone in the city? Would you be okay with that? And then what if I told you that guy was Batman? Yay!
So you think people would just be okay with that?
No, what I'm saying is that films are films. Their movies are movies. You can't. Like, I don't know. I'm being very contrarian right now, and I don't want to be.
No, please do.
It's like it doesn't really say it's just a movie.
Yeah, I mean it's ultimately
there's so many other factors that affect your opinion on seeing it.
Yeah, like these movies are not someone's like thesis paper, you know.
If you
their.
Don't trust the government to begin with, you're not gonna like the NSA. If you trust the government and the actions that the government takes and the actions that the government has taken in the past, then you will be okay with the NSA.
And like the Dark Knight example specifically.
If you trust Batman, you can trust Batman with the technology.
Yeah, and the way they kind of fix that problem is they just destroy the damn thing at the end. Like
the reason where Winter Soldier comes in, it's like, do you trust Shield? Nick Fury trusts the people in control because he trusts himself, but he didn't know that half of the people working in the building were Hydra.
Yeah,
and would target innocent people.
Yeah.
It's like that Civil War quote, like, my faith in people, I guess. Like, it's really, like, small and scattered. Like, it's like a huge, overreaching organization.
Was a very...
But that's a very libertarian concept, my faith in
trusting people over institutions.
Trusting people over institutions, but you can't necessarily do because, humanity as a whole and the concept of humanity is inherently good, but humans themselves are flawed. And you can't trust flawed individuals. Institutions have have contingencies,
but they have agendas.
They have checks and balances.
But a good institution has transparency.
But what makes an institution good, though?
What makes an institution good is, I believe, transparency. And a spy organization isn't really transparent.
So inherently, spy organizations are just bad?
Apparently, Shield is bad.
Well, there's a gray area.
Okay.
I can't give you the answer to that.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
we ask so many questions here, and
we don't
want
to
have
any in the
answers,
CIA. I don't know how this works.
Yeah. I think my dramatic criticism of kind of the ending of this film. So there's this scene where Alexander Pierce, played by Robert Redford, it kind of gives after he's been outed as Hydra to the World Security Council dudes who are like with him in that room. He tries to basically give them a pitch, like, he talks to one councilman. He's like, imagine if these terrorists like took your daughters. You knew this was going to happen. You knew this was going to happen like at this soccer stadium, when you push the button, and then the guy very quickly rejects it, says, not if it was your button. So, okay, good for him for, like, knowing that's, like, the wrong thing to do, but, like, the only reason he wasn't into it is because now, out of nowhere, he knows that this dude is Hydra. So I think what would have made the film more interesting, and this is just my opinion, and feel free to, like...
is not to reveal...
No, not that. I would have liked if this guy and, like, maybe the other World Security Council guys were actually tempted by this. Where it's like, okay, this guy's Hydra, but, like, he also has a point. Because they were all for activating Project Insight, weren't they? So it would have been interesting. Yeah, but it would have been interesting if, like, okay, despite who it's coming from, I'm still ideologically into this idea. And I think that would have kind of given a little more texture to that conflict, and make it less okay. This side's bad, that side's good. It would have made it less
Hydra as Nazis, even though Hydra is.
I mean, yeah.
but it would have shown that, like, it would have given more girth.
Yeah, I mean, do you girth? Yes. Do you agree or disagree? Or
no, I agree with your point. I think having one of them tempted and one of them not, and then arguing about it. Or, like, some line of, like, anger towards each other would have been something.
Yeah. And
it's very, like, superhero... I feel like it's very, like, superhero movie of it to just be, like, like, not if it was your switch. Like, immediately seeing it, like, a good force, like, against, like, bad at having them turn on them.
I don't know that,
So
but like
it kind of played down.
if you like that whole if you knew thing kind of reminds me of actually Infinity War, but Doctor Strange. But
Anyway.
but do you understand what I mean?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I like how he like just tosses a champagne glass away, and he has like this big character moment, and then like 5 minutes later they all instantly die.
There was no champagne glass.
Like he like handed him a drink.
Oh, okay. I see what
yeah,
I
and
see
then
what
like
you're talking
none
about.
of you is your switch.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
talking about Winter Soldier now.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking
no,
about...
not Infinity. No, God, no, we're not.
I thought you were talking about the other movie. The movie that we're not allowed to talk about. And I was just like, there's no drinks,
Yeah,
and
they
then
all-
everyone dies?
Yeah. Wait, am I cutting that part out? Everyone dies? Did you really just say that?
Yeah, I mean, you can cut that out.
Yeah.
We're going to cut this part out. This is not going to be in it.
Okay. So now... Have you...
You have one more question?
Not necessarily. I think that was kind of the final thing that I wanted to talk about.
Well,
just
bring it back
like
to the
the
question.
So, did this movie have something to say? Like,
Well, we're talking about it, so hell yeah, it has something to say.
sure. But I mean, we're talking about it because I wanted us to talk about this, but at the same time,
But people in general talk about... Well, people talked about this movie.
I feel like people referenced it during the whole Black Panther discourse, saying that Winter Soldier did not go as far as Black Panther in like
Exactly.
committing to into like a statement.
Political statement. I think
But I think...
that's
but I
also
think,
because of Ryan Coogler and it's who Ryan
but I also think of
is.
who you're dealing with in that movie. If it wasn't Hydra, then it's... Like, if it's just half of...
If it was like a Civil War comic, was like good against like good, like Captain America versus Iron Man, Captain America just like versus the United States in general. Like if you took out Hydra out of the equation,
Well,
then you present a more interesting story.
What I'm getting at is that Hydra is inherently bad in the comics. They're Nazis in real life. Like, Nazis are bad in real life. So, do you... When you're having this argument about the movie, you know, okay, they're bad. There's no... Oh, what if they're right? Because if you say, what if they're right, what if Hydra is right, then you're basically saying, what if the Nazis were right? Which is very bad to say.
Yes.
But if
when
you say
put it that
what
way,
if,
yes.
But if you say, what if Killmonger is right,
Uh-huh.
and which people do say, and I completely understand that point, because it makes sense.
There's a little more nuance to that.
There's
There's more room.
There's more nuance
to discuss.
There's more personability with it.
Mm-hmm.
There is
A gray area, could you say?
I mean, no, I mean it is a gray area, but they're both gray areas. Both movies have gray areas. What I'm saying is that there is like Black Panther is more of a personal, like the actions of it are personal.
Mm-hmm. You can like imprint yourself based on your personal experience, kind of on Killmonger's experience. Whereas
Exactly.
like you can't really.
I mean, as a white guy, I can't experience that.
Yeah.
But you two are both of Asian descent, so I don't know if you guys have probably some experience in racism.
We'll talk about that another time. I
Yes.
think there's a more relevant topic we can talk about when it's Asian issues. Anyway.
Wait a minute, you're telling me there's a movie involving Asian issues in the MCU?
Yeah, that.
Maybe the movie starts with a D?
And there's also that little TV show that starts with an I.
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what
Iron
happens.
Fist.
Oh, Iron Fist. Yeah, that
We
movie.
made a drinking game out of it.
Oh my god, yeah, that movie was
We were
awful.
in this apartment.
That show was
Yes.
garbage.
Yeah.
Just as a disclaimer, we had an Iron Fist drinking game, and we just couldn't even. It didn't help.
No.
That's what happened. It didn't help.
It was a bad time for all involved. So let's try to like sum this conversation up because we kind of went around in circles because there's so much about like gray areas, black and white. Was it wrong? Maybe it was wrong, but also it was kind of right. So let's kind of like bullet point.
The main points.
Yeah. Do we have like
it's bad. They kill people.
do we have like a final verdict?
They do a lot of bad.
I
More bad
think
than
they
good.
introduce some main points, I guess, like the inclusion of Hydra into Shield as a villain. I guess
Good and is connected to is a connective tissue in the MCU, and it's also very helpful for the character, connecting back to the villain that he thought he stopped in World War II, and he did it.
social wise,
Social wise and like relating to the outside universe, not that great because of how society as a whole pictures Nazis. What else?
Yeah, I mean, it overall, I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that
Cap is not a libertarian.
I don't know if we exactly
Cap
honed in on
and-
that because I think there's more we would have to know about him to kind of make that conclusion. But I think we did kind of decide that.
Does he think that poor people should just die? Then probably.
He probably wouldn't.
He probably wouldn't.
He has a good heart.
He has a good heart.
Steve Rogers is.
So.
A wholesome man.
Yeah. When he's not beating the shit out of people. So.
Keeping secrets.
Yeah. So the compartmentalization, perhaps.
Wait, what?
Like keeping the secret about Bucky and Tony's parents.
I thought I was protecting you, but really I was protecting myself.
Yeah. At least he admits that mistake at the end. But I think
Does
we
that connect to the larger whole of the CIA?
No. Anyway,
Other main points like Shield and Hydra. I just lost it. Like, we'll stop out the conversation with between Fury and Steve, like
Right.
how their perspectives are based on context. If you put it in different ways, like they have different ideologies, and within context, one might be right and the other one is not, and vice versa. Just use political party and how that's sort of thrown in the air a little bit.
I think the main thing that I'm getting from this conversation is that
Libertarians shouldn't steal quotes from a movie without
that's the
nuance.
third time you interrupt me before I try to make the final point. Anyway, I'm trying to say that The Winter Soldier, the movie, did a very good job at using 1970s tropes and imagery, specifically the paranoia and like the don't trust anyone angle, and a lot of real life like post 9/11 Patriot Act sensibilities to kind of enhance its own standalone story without necessarily taking a hard stand at the end. Because like we were saying, like I think there's less room when you add the Nazi angle to kind of talk about, it's not as nuanced as other politically charged films. But we still like the movie.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely top. I mean, top.
It is
10.
still my favorite.
Top
I will
five
say, I was
for
going to ask
me.
that. It's still like your favorite.
It is still my favorite
top
film
five
because
or
it is
just top 10 for me. 'Cause it's 18 movies.
yeah, it's in the top half.
Question: I know you were talking about the top best movie after Infinity War. Could you? Well, actually, we can't even rank it. But like, would you still
Sure.
say which is also your favorite?
Yes, because it is just
Oh hell yeah!
it is an airtight film.
It is very airtight.
It is very
More airtight
well
than Civil
structured.
War, yeah.
Like even if you don't enjoy it necessarily, there are not really a lot of like storytelling flaws or
Yeah.
plot holes about that movie. And it was just such a breath of fresh air from the first Avenger and the first Avengers movie. Because First Avenger, like Steve Rogers was very like Boy Scouty, and it was a little one note, I think.
But I think it was one note in the sense of like that period pieces are like what happens.
Sure, yeah,
Like Dunkirk, you can argue is one note
yeah, no,
because like what happens in the movie. It's just the experience through the whole thing.
yeah. But I mean, like there wasn't a lot of nuance to his character. Then it was just like I just want to fight bullies and be a good person. And not to mention like aesthetically, like it had this like it was very CGI heavy, like fantasy version of Indiana Jones, and I didn't dig the look of it, honestly. Even though I liked a lot of the prop and production design, I just think that the movie in motion did not look that great. So, and like I feel like Joss Whedon's take on Cap is kind of an underdog. So you see him get beat up all the time, and he's not that good of a fighter in Avengers 1 or 2, I feel. So seeing him in Cap 2, where he's just like a human weapon, like he's running through hallways, he's like
He's the type
making
of weapon that they were supposed to.
he's literally making dents into the wall as he like runs into them. He's like busting through doors.
Yeah, no, he's the weapon that he was made to be.
Yeah, like when he gets shot by the grenade launcher and uses his shield to block it, he gets launched into a bus, and it just destroys that bus. Like his body is a weapon. He is like the peak of the human condition.
Yeah.
And I just loved, just like the added backstory of like in the 2 years between Avengers 1 and Cap 2, he's like training. He's learned all these different martial arts, and
adjusted to Earth.
yeah, and he is like the thematic idea of like bringing his old school sensibilities to fix this modern day problem. Maybe we've agreed that maybe it wasn't perfect the way they handled it, but I think that's still an interesting story to tell, and I think this did it like fairly well, enough to make a very entertaining and engaging movie.
Mm-hmm. That's still one of the MCU's best.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I will fight anyone who doesn't like this.
one.
Yeah, and I think they're stupid. How's that for intellectual discussion? Hey.
Yeah, ad hominem attacks, man.
Yeah. So yeah, we are almost getting to an hour here, so I think we're kind of wrapping up. You can follow me on social media. I am at Compenderizer on Twitter. Do either of y'all have any social media profiles or any projects online that you would like to plug?
I have a Twitter, at the Pizza Taco. Very easy. Nothing else.
At the Pizza Taco.
Yes.
Izzy.
As Chris said, I'm now contributing on Marvel News Desk, so be sure to check my stuff out. I'll also start updating my Twitter and Instagram stuff just to be more engaging within Marvel News Desk with the community. So keep an eye out for that.
What's your handle?
I forget. I haven't used Twitter in so long. I forget, but it'll be around.
Yeah, I'll probably like add it to the notes here or something like
Thanks.
that. But yeah, good job, good discussion, everyone.
Hey.
Yeah.
And I guess
I think we talked about a lot of interesting, good points.
yeah. So if anyone if the many listeners to this have any suggestions on topics to talk about, any feedback, you can actually email me at chris@marvelnewsdesk.com. Yes, that's right. I have my own damn email address for this site. Yeah.
Profesh.
Yeah, and don't send any bad stuff because I'll know who you are. Anyway, it's been good. Go watch Infinity War.
Yeah.
Read my
If you
review of
haven't
it.
watched already,
Because I think my review's pretty damn good. Not to I'm literally bragging. But check it out. See you later.